Vayalu Vayaturu at the Aretz. So we're in chapter 13, verse 21. They went up to scout out the land. Mimidbartzin ad Rehov Uvo Hamat. So these are the scouts. They were going up to scout out the land from the Tzin wilderness until Rehov Uvo Hamat. Do we know where does Rabbi Steinmetz have a drawing of that? Is it speculative? Because these are places that are not really mentioned too many other places. So he says here it's at the southeast corner of the land of Israel. That's what Rashi says.
Oh, Hamat is up in Syria, according to history.
Yeah.
It says the name.
No, but the Tzin is in the southeast.
Refers to the prickly edges of plains. Perhaps alludes to desert regions that contains.
Yeah, it's not clear to me that these places are mentioned elsewhere. Let's see what Rashi says. Rashi says, they went along its border, by length and by width, kamin gam, the shape of the Greek letter gamma. So the Greek letter gamma, there's two ways to draw it. There's the lowercase and the uppercase. So here they draw like this, like a backwards final chaf. Final chaf is like this. It's the backwards final chaf. They walked along so they walked along the side of the land which forms the southern border. The Miktil Mizrach from the eastern corner, on Miktil Marav till the western corner. So they walked, like you said, from the bottom, the southern border. They walked along that from the east all the way to which way is it coming? So the eastern side would be closer to what we call Jordan today, and the west would be closer to what we have as the Mediterranean Sea. So they walked along from the eastern side up towards the sea, like Moshe said, Alu Zeba Negev, go up here in the south, Derek Vul, by way of the border. Meaning to say, Sefas Dromish the southern rim of Israel go. That's the Sin wilderness. To Romi Mizrach is from the southeast Adayam until the sea. And that is, the sea is the western border. Umisham Chazru, from the sea, they went north. They went the entire western boundary. Al Sfasayam, all the way up until they came to Hamat, which is next to Mount Hor or Hahar. And that is in modern day Jordan or Mount Hor. Miktoa Maravis Tzefonis, which is at the northwest corner. The reason why I think that's in modern day Jordan, that people go to, that's where Aaron is buried, and people go to that today. And that's in modern day Jordan. And that's at the northwest corner, as it explained in the boundaries as listed in Parashas Emes. No, people go to, I mean, I'm not saying that in Syria, I'm saying where people go today, although before October 7th, there were Jews who were making pilgrimages to Aaron's grave, and they were doing the Birkat Kohanim. This was going on, and that is in modern day Jordan. Jordan was always much more dangerous to go to than Saudi Arabia, because Jordan is mostly Palestinian, so they didn't like the Jews coming there. Saudi Arabia was totally hospitable. So, well, you're right. Based upon this, it should have been it sounds like it should have been closer to Syria, but that's not where it is.
And here, it also says, it has been identified with the village of Lebanon, north of Baalbek and the Becca Valley. So west of here.
That's which one? Mount Hor?
No, Levo Hamat.
Oh, Levo Hamat. Yeah, well, Levo Hamat. I mean, Levo Hamat. Yeah, I was talking about the Mount Hor. So I don't know. But he says here that Levo Hamat is next to Mount Hor. So let me just look up this in Wikipedia. What do they say? I was thinking
Chmei
of
Tveria, maybe that's what it's related.
um. Hold on. Let's see. Mount Ahor is the name given in the Hebrew Bible to two mountains. I see. One borders the land of Adam in the area south of the Dead Sea, and the other is by the Mediterranean Sea at the northern border. So they have two mountains with the same name. The first mountain is especially significant to the Israelites as Aaron, high priest, brother Moses, buried there. So there's a southern Mount Hor and a northern Mount Hor. The Mount Hor and the southern one has been the subject of a lot of debate where it is exactly. So they have a lot of discussion about that where it is. Some want to say it's in basically modern day Jordan. Others say it's elsewhere. And then there's the northern Mount Hor, and that is the northern boundary of the land of Israel. And it's traditionally identified as the Nor of the Amanus Mountains. And that is the northern, basically, where's the Amanus Mountains? I don't know. Okay, so basically it's the northern limit of the Syrian plain. Okay. By this description, Amana, according to some, is the southernmost antique Lebanon mountains, incredible with Mount Hermon. All right, so basically it's up there. So that answers our question. I learned something right now. Two Mount Hors. I think I knew that at some point in my life, but I forgot it. One is around the Lebanese-Syrian border or somewhere up there, and the other is in current day Jordan. And one is where Aaron's buried, and one is the northern border of Israel. Okay, so now come to the verse. Okay, they went up in the south. Rashi, they go up into the south. So what does that mean? We explain what that means. They go along the southern border, and then they start going up. They start going north, and they came to Hebron. Levo at Hebron. The Sham in Hebron was Achiman, Sheshai, Talmai, Yelidei Anak, the offspring of the giant. What? Anak. Anak. That's the Hebrew word. Anak. Anak. Yeah. But elsewhere in the Torah, it's a very good point. Elsewhere in the Torah, they called giants maybe like B'nai Elohim. That's at the end of the first portion of Bereshit. They said that B'nai Elohim. Right, so that's referring to the Nephilim. That's the end of the portion of Bereshit. But that's not clear that that's referring to giants. That could be a reference to like supernatural creatures who came down from heaven.
Translation. Translation.
Right. But, right, so the Nephilim literally means like the fallen ones. Fallen one, right? Fallen angels. Here, the Yelidei Anak, this seems to be a reference to giant ones and nothing supernatural. And so they were in Hebron. We'll see what it says. The Hebron Sheva Shanim Nimneta B'fnei Tzoan Mitzrayim. The Hebron was built 7 years before Tzoan in Egypt. This we learned about in the Talmud, so Rashi is going to quote that. You'll see. So first they came to Hebron, but Rashi's bothered by the fact that it says in the singular. It says they went up to the south and he came to Hebron, which is unusual. It switches from the plural to the singular. So Rashi is going to comment on that. First, Jerry has a question. Yes, Jerry?
Yes. It looks like the writer of this portion was interjecting a superfluous comment about how old Hebron the city of Hebron was.
Right. Very good
But
point.
God, you wouldn't think that God, who's writing this Torah, is going to give a sort of an offbeat comment.
So Rashi's going to explain why it's there. You're right that the comment sticks out, and Rashi's going to try to explain what it's doing there. And it's there's a lot to discuss with that. So what's going on? So Rashi says like this. He came to Hebron. Why doesn't it say they came? Why does it say he came? Because remember, Kalev Vado Alach Shem. Kalev himself went there. Vinishtatach al Kivrei Avos. Kalev himself went there and prayed down by the graves of his fathers. Shelo Yehi Nisat Rav Liot Bat Satan. So they should not be persuaded by his companions to be part of their plan. So Kalev went, and this is one of the sources that we should go to the graves of our ancestors to pray for inspiration. So Kalev comes from Yehuda, and Yehuda was from Hebron. So he went to Marat HaMachpelah, which is in Hebron. Has anybody here ever been to Hebron? Did you ever go there, Guy? Yeah, it's in Yehuda. It's in the territory of Yehuda. You go to Marat HaMachpelah. So he went there to the tombs of Abraham and Isaac and Sarah and Rebecca and Jacob and Leah and Adam and Eve. They're buried there. So he went there to pray for inspiration, that he would not follow the advice of these rabble-rousers. V'cheinu omer, as it states, v'lo atena ta'aretz asher darach ba, to him I shall give the land upon which he walked. V'ktiv v'yitnu Kalev et Hebron, and so they gave Hebron to Kalev. So this tells us that Kalev had gone earlier to Hebron. When in the book of Judges they give Hebron as a special reward to Kalev, that's because he had walked there to pray. So he went to this place of the Marat HaMachpelah. That's where he went. That's how Rashi says, because otherwise we have an issue. Why does it switch from the plural to the singular? And then it states, Sheva Shanim Nivnata. Hebron was built 7 years before Tzoan of Egypt. What's the significance of that? Rashi tells us what it is. This is what Rashi says. Is it possible that Ham would have built Hebron for Canaan, his younger son, before he built Tzoan for Mitzrayim, his older son? So Ham, who is Ham in the Torah? So Ham is Noach's second son, and he has 4 children. And of those children, Canaan was his 4th son, and he got the land of Canaan. And Mitzrayim was his 2nd son. And so therefore, what does it mean that Hebron was built 7 years before Tzoan in Egypt? How could it be that Ham would have built a city for his youngest son prior to building a city for the 2nd son? The 2nd son would have gotten the city first. So it must mean that it doesn't mean he literally built it. This goes to what Jerry was saying, but rather it means that Hebron was mivuneh bechol tuv al echad mishiva b'tzoan. It means that Hebron was 7 times more fertile than Tzoan in Egypt. That's what it means, Rashi said. And it's coming to teach us, this goes to your question, Jerry, why is it here? Comes to teach us the greatness of the land of Israel. She'ein lecha trashin be'eretz Yisrael yoter mechevron. The most rocky area, the most rocky terrain in all of Israel was Hebron. That's why they turned into a cemetery, because you can't plant there. And there's no place better amongst all the lands, no place more fertile than Egypt. As it states, Kigan Hashem Keretz Mitzrayim. Egypt is called the Garden of God. And so on was the best place in Egypt, because there all the kings of Egypt lived. As it states, Ki ayu b'tzoan sarav, for his ministers were in Soan. That's in Isaiah. The officials of the kings of Israel were sent on a mission to Soan to see the king of Egypt who lived in Soan. And yet, Chevron was 7 times as good as Soan. So Chevron was the worst part of Israel, from the perspective of the land, and the Egypt was the best land amongst all the lands, and Soan was the best place in all of Egypt, and Chevron was 7 times as good as Soan. So that's what we're being told here. We're emphasizing the greatness of the land of Israel, and yet at the same time, the spies or these Meraglim gave a bad report. It's to emphasize just how misguided their inadequate report was, or just how misguided their report was. Okay, so, now we have a very, very, very difficult verse. You ever see, what's that seal? I think it was the stamp of Israel where the spies are carrying the grapes. Where is that on? Is that on the, it's on, no, but it's the
Ministry
it's
of Tourism.
Oh, the Ministry of Tourism takes it out, and they put it out.
I wrote a blog about it today.
Okay. So, what do you say, Steve?
The image is showing them carrying it on full.
Right. So let's see how they got that image, and if it's consistent with Rashi's explanation.
Rabbi, I
Let's see
just
what-
shared it on the screen if you want.
Okay. So Rabbi Yosef wrote a blog about this today. Oh, there's the image. It's a stamp, right? Yeah. Okay, but let's just let's see what first before we go to the stamps. Let's see what Rashi says.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the verse says, "Vayavo anacho Eshkol." They came to the valley of Eshkol. Vayachretu misham zimora, and they cut down from there a vine. Ve'eshkol anavim echad, with 1 cluster of grapes. Vayisau bamot bishnayim, and they carried it on a pole by 2. What does that mean?
2 men. Took 2 of them to carry.
On a pole,
The pole was between.
right? And they put the grapes over the pole.
So 1 pole and 2 poles.
Well, it says
One-
bishnayim. Well, let's see what Rashi says. Let's see what Rashi says. What were you saying? It's 1 pole, 2 guys? That's the way they drew it in the stamp. The stamp is 1 pole, 2 guys, but let's see what Rashi says. And then and then the pomegranates and the figs. Well, what's going on there with the pomegranates and the figs? Who's carrying that? So let's see what Rashi says. Vayisau bamot pishnayim. They carried on a pole by 2. So Rashi says, "Mimashma shenemar vayisau bamot eini yodea shu b'shnayim." From the fact that it says that they carried it on a pole, I would have anyways known that it was 2, because so the commentaries say, what's the source for it? There's for the idea that the fact that it says they carried on a pole must be 2, because so one commentary says maybe the word moat implies a pole typically carried by 2, or maybe the concept is that why is the Torah telling us this unless it was such an unusual thing that had to be done by 2 people? They carried it. Yeah. So
And it says a pole, not 2 poles.
Vayisu bamot, and then it says 2. So I'm not disagreeing with your reading. I'm just gonna say that Rashi disagrees, but there are other commentaries who accept your reading. The point is, it's a very controversial verse. No. You're not going to be out with Rashi. You're going to be consistent with other commentaries. It's a very much debated point. So Rashi says, why does it mean two? Vishtei motos. It means two poles. Hakeitzad. How was it done with two poles? What does it mean by two poles? Not by two people. How was that done? So Rashi says, Shmona natu eshkol. 8 of the men took a cluster of grapes. Echad natal te'inav, echad rimon. One took a fig and one took a pomegranate. So how does it mean? So two poles are carried by 4 people, but 8 of the spies were carrying the poles because, as Rashi is about to say, Joshua and Kalev did not carry anything. They knew these people were up to no good. So, and they were saying, because the people were going to say, just as the fruit is unusual, so too the people are unusual. And if you want to know that, look how much we're carrying them. So therefore, what happened? So therefore, it must be that it was 8 of the spies were carrying them. So how does that happen? So 8 of them must have been carrying these poles, and the grapes were on 2 of the poles. So the way that can easily make sense is if you have 4 people carrying one way and 4 people on the other side, because you have 2 poles, and then you have the poles going across, poles going crisscross. And that's how you could easily carry it. What does Rabbi Steinzelt say?
Says, it simply says, and 2 of them bore it upon 2 of them would be 2 people.
He doesn't have a drawing or anything, or a
Yeah,
footnote.
we have another map.
He doesn't want to get into it because it's not the most logical reading, but that's how Rashi reads it. You're right. What?
According to some midrashim, this cluster was even larger than might be inferred from a straightforward reading of the text. So yes, you could play all kinds of, once you decided the text isn't.
Well, no, that's about the size of the grapes, not about how they carried it. This idea of how they carry in this manner was based upon the Talmud. The Talmud was saying like that, but Rashi must be that Rashi says 8 people were carrying them. So it must be, it was so big that they needed 4 poles, and then you need 8 people to carry it.
Maybe it was, oh, actually, yeah.
Or there were 2 people who had 1 pole, as it says.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question.
You could just read it and it is what it says it is.
There's certainly that approach for sure. Okay. Okay. So similarly, Rashi says we have a similar idea. It says they took the stones which they set up in Gilgal, and they lifted them. Each person lifted 1 stone on his shoulder, and they set it up at Gilgal. And then our rabbis weighed these stones, and they weighed 40 seah. And so, okay, so he's emphasizing about, Rashi's there is emphasizing how much each one could carry, and he proves that from the stones. All right, well, let's stop in Mincha here. Let me ask you a question, Guy.